everyone. I am Dr. Erin, host of the Trial Site News podcast. And today we're going to talk about a really important topic, which is suicide prevention. I know we talk a lot about pandemic related topics, and this probably does relate to the pandemic because it relates to everything. Our guest is someone who's very involved with suicide prevention. He's a great advocate and he's a good friend of mine, Gabriel Nathan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's really a privilege to be here.
Absolutely. And I was going to introduce you, but you do a lot of things. So I'm going to hand it over to you. You introduce yourself.
Okay. So yes, Gabriel Nathan, what is he? Who is he? Why is this happening? I am an independent suicide awareness and prevention advocate, a mental health advocate. Professionally, I'm the editor-in-chief of OC87 Recovery Diaries. It's an online storytelling platform related to mental health. So we feature personal essays by folks with lived experience, telling their recovery stories. And we also do short subject documentary films, all about mental health recovery. I help people when I can. I'm not a trained or certified licensed mental health professional. But I am someone who has a certain skill set and experience. I worked in a psychiatric hospital for 5 years. And I think that it's really important. If there's one thing that you leave this show knowing for sure, it's two things. One, anybody can be at risk for dying by suicide, and anybody can help prevent a suicide. So it's not just MDs or people with letters after their names, or people trained in crisis intervention. Anybody can help prevent someone from taking their own life. So that's my deal. That's who I am.
Yeah, and you're a brilliant writer. You're a brilliant editor, actor, very creative person in general.
But that if you tell me so, I guess it's true.
No, you are, and well, that's how we met. Because I actually submitted something I wrote to Gabe's website, and not many people were writing me back, and Gabe wrote back, and that began a friendship. And I was very interested. I learned a lot about what he was doing, and I've learned a lot from him over the years about suicide prevention, things that I didn't learn in med school, didn't learn in public health school. So you're doing a great thing.
Thank you.
And that brings me to, so my favorite class in public health school was public health through film and fiction, because I think it's the best way to convey messages. It resonates with people in a way that, like a fact sheet doesn't.
Yeah.
And that brings me to your film, A Beautiful Day Tomorrow. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, obviously, I agree with you. Working for a website that is kind of the intersection of creativity and mental health, and filmmaking is such a big part of who we are and what we do. I'm not a filmmaker, but I did have a crazy idea to mount GoPro cameras all over my car and take it 1,100 miles, which I guess it was 55 at that time, 55-year-old car. It's an idiot's undertaking. But I did it. And my goal was really to talk to a variety of different people, friends of mine who I know have experienced suicide loss, friends of mine who I know have attempted suicide, and also just random people I meet along the way, and document those encounters. And I raised some money, and we kind of potchkeyed a film together out of 100 hours of raw footage of me mostly cursing and farting inside my car by myself and talking to myself. But we did make a little film out of it, and you can watch it at abeautifuldaytomorrow.com, or you can search for it on YouTube. But so, as you know, you were one of the folks interviewed for the film, and to me, there are a lot of things I wish were different about the film, but one of the things that I really love about it and appreciate about it is that there's a diversity of human experience that is shown in the film. I wish there were more racial diversity. A lot of the people I spoke to are Caucasian, and it's okay. And it's not okay, but there's other kind of diversity in the film. So, I talked to you and you lost two very, very close female friends to suicide, and both firearm suicide, which is very unusual in females, right? I spoke to randomly at a gas station an Army veteran who disclosed his mental health and suicidality and now can't get back in the armed services. So, that was a very interesting experience. Spoke to a first responder mental health provider who treats law enforcement officers and first responders with EMDR and yoga and therapy in Vermont. Spoke to a close friend of mine who lost her mother 20 years ago to suicide, an individual who lost his father, to my own father who lost his sister in Israel. So it really shows that suicide is not just one thing, and it's not just one face, and it's not just one type of person. I think we still have that idea of like the person who kills themselves, and it's anybody.
I think that's so true. There's still a stigma around it. So can we talk more about that? Why do we have, like, what is this image of this person who, attempts suicide? Why do we have that?
This idea of, you know, so-and-so killed, I never would have thought so-and-so, So we still do have this idea of who is at risk and who is not. And I think, working at the psychiatric hospital, those lines are very clearly delineated. There are the people with the wristband, and there are the people with the ID badge and keys, and ne'er the two shall cross, right? However, what we know is that, so at the hospital where I used to work, we had what are called certified peer specialists. So they're people with lived experience, people who had been hospitalized in that very hospital, who then went through a training program and worked there. I worked side by side with some of these folks who had been restrained to beds in that very hospital, who had been shot in the ass with Ativan, Benadryl, and Haldol, chemically restrained. And now they're running groups with me. So that patient staff line is blurred. And every now and then I would come into work and hear, guess who's in crisis? Guess who's in the crisis lobby? And it was a staff member. And they weren't there for work. So you start to understand that the line gets very blurry. And I think that the more we understand that in life, the better. There is no us and them. There is no, wellness is not a constant thing. It's not linear, and it's not guaranteed to anybody. You can get a phone call today that you will rock your world. And I think we also have this idea, and there are certain suicide prevention organizations that do a real disservice by putting out this stat, and I see it all over the place, and I hate it. Over 90% of people who die by suicide have a diagnosed mental illness. Really? How the do you know that? Are you doing psychological autopsies on every single person who dies by suicide? And for sure, you've gone through all their therapist records. You know that they have a therapist. You know that they have this ICD-10 code for depression or bipolar or schizophrenia. You don't know that. And so what that stat does, and it's a bogus stat, is it tells people, well, if you don't have a diagnosed mental illness, you're probably okay. And you're not. Because so much of suicidality comes from life circumstances, from situations, things that happen. You lose your job.
Yeah.
You may be under arrest. You
Heartbreak.
may a heartbreak, or a relationship, the loss of a therapist. I've been with my therapist for 11 years. Can you imagine if one day he was like, you know what, I'm moving to fucking Sheboygan and I can't see you anymore. That's a huge loss.
Yeah.
So when those stressors compound, right?
Yeah.
That can create a situation that you're just not ready for, whether you have a diagnosed mental illness or not.
Yeah, and it's really interesting too, and I noticed, I know there's groups trying to address, as you said, everybody is at risk of suicide. It can happen to anybody. It can happen to anybody in your family, any of your friends. Um, and I noticed when you see a doctor do it, and there's a high rate of suicide amongst
Yes,
medical
yes.
professionals, doctors, veterinarians. My father's a veterinarian. He always told me that.
I just posted about it on
I saw
Instagram
it.
this morning. Oh, you did? Yeah,
I
yeah,
did see it.
absolutely.
Female veterinarians. I read that. I was like, phew. No, I'm kidding. But it was like my dad is.
Well,
But
female
like I
vet
think,
and male vet techs, it's all over that profession.
yeah, it is, and it's really sad. Um, but these are high functioning people, and I think when you think about that person who um, you think might be at risk, that's not who you're thinking of.
Right.
You're not thinking of the doctor in the white coat. You're not thinking of this really accomplished veterinarian that takes care of all of our beloved pets. uh, you're not thinking of that at all. And I think that needs to change. And I think your film really does do that too. It shows, and I hear you on the diversity issue, but I also know that you only had a limited amount of time, and then you had car troubles and all of that.
Yeah,
And
I did.
and I mean, when I saw the final product, just having been a part of it, I was like, this is amazing. This is really, really well done. It's a beautiful film, and you should be really
Thank you.
proud of that. Um, but you highlight all different types of experiences related to suicide, and not many, and it's beautiful. It's just well done, and you hear different things from people, and you're like, wow, that person, that person, that person. Um, so I think I hope everybody watches that documentary. And I guess I would ask you, are there things that you learned? You do this every day, just through the film by talking to other things that stuck out that you're like, oh wow, didn't think of it that way before. That's really powerful.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, thank you, and I'm really, really proud that you were a part of it. That meant a lot to me, and I'm very sorry that your seatbelt was not on correctly in the car. It does eat at me when I see the film. Like, God, But anyway,
It was fine.
it really wasn't. But
Okay,
anyway,
good.
a couple things really stick out to me from the film. One thing is, this didn't actually make it into the film, but while I was driving in New York, I passed by a lot of these signs that were related to motorcycle safety. And it was a silhouette of a guy on a motorcycle, assuming it was a guy. And it said, "Look twice, save a life." And so, of course, what they're saying is, as you're merging onto a road, really make sure that you're looking, because it's easy to miss a motorcycle because they're so small, right? Compared to a car, easy to miss. Look twice, save a life. And I was thinking, I did a lot of monologuing in the car because there's nothing else to do in the car. And I would talk to the GoPro inside. But I was thinking about how that's such a great mantra for suicide prevention, that like we look at people, like you said, Stare, like we look at a successful veterinarian or a physician or someone who, I hear this all the time, like the star athlete, the jock in school, the really handsome young man, or the gorgeous, the prom queen, or whatever. We have these such fucked up ideas, like, well, if you look a certain way, well, you're handsome, or you're beautiful, or you're married to someone lovely, and you have blah blah single home, and you have children, you've got it, quote, all together. How could you possibly be at risk for suicide? But that's our first look. Look twice. It's underneath, right? It's those appearances that we give off, or what we post on social media. It's image. We're all image crafting all the time, right? But there's always something underneath that. And it's like when you ask someone, "Hey, how are you doing?" "Fine." Look twice. You could save a life. Go deeper. Ask questions. Um, you notice someone look away from you. You notice someone shifting their weight uncomfortably. You notice someone being evasive. You notice someone who was in contact with you a lot, now they're dropping off. Someone all of a sudden is kind of talking about religion. That's curious. What's that about? Ask questions. There are soft warning signs, right? These little changes in behavior, these things that people say when they're kind of just dipping their toe in the water of thinking about how does it feel to talk about this. A lot of times people want you to ask, and they will give you soft signs. And it's really incumbent upon us to really pay attention and pick up on that kind of stuff. So look twice, save a life. That really stuck out to me. And there's one other moment in the film that really hit me hard. I was in Vermont and I was talking to my friend Hayes Johnson, and Hayes is such a sweet man, and he's a Herbie guy, and I ended up borrowing his VW and mine crapped out, and Hayes's father killed himself. I think at that time it was 10 years ago. And Hayes was in college, and Hayes and I were driving together, and Hayes was talking about how in the days before his father's suicide, his behavior changed, but it changed for the better. You know, Hayes's father was usually consistently pretty dark and kind of standoffish and very kind of patriarchal. You know, would be served by the wife dinner and would wait, and the wife would clear his plate, and he started saying, you know, I'll do the dishes, Becky. You sit down and relax. I'll clean up. And Hayes and his mom thought, God, you know, Dad's getting better, and he killed himself. And this can be a really it's a huge warning sign, and it can be really seductive. It can really seduce you into believing things are okay, because the person is not getting better. They've just made their decision, and they've checked out, and they want to leave things lovely. And all of a sudden, all that pressure is gone because they've decided. So it's a huge warning sign, and I'm so grateful to Hayes for talking about it, because I know that will save a life. People knowing that.
So you talked about asking questions, and for any viewers, and parents too, a lot of parents are worried about their kids, their teens, young kids. How is that the best way to approach this issue? If you think a loved one is at risk, do you continue to ask questions? Is there
Absolutely.
anything else you should say? Anything you should not say?
So in my experience, and the research backs this up, the experts, and I am not a suicide prevention expert. I don't really believe there is such a thing. Other people do, and that's fine. Not only ask questions, but ask the question. Are you thinking about killing yourself? Look into that. I'm looking in your eyes right now. Ask that question. Be as direct as you can, because I guarantee you, it's a breathtaking moment. I have asked it, and I have been asked it, and it changes everything. When you say the word, and you open that door to whatever you were talking about before is totally different now. The whole game has changed. You are really letting that person know that they can tell you anything. And when I think about suicide prevention, like how do you prevent a suicide? Tongue in cheekly, I kind of say, just don't be an asshole who's gonna shame someone or negate or dismiss what they're saying, or throw God at them, or say, oh, you shouldn't think that, or you guilt them. You've got a family. You be open to anything they have to tell you, even if they've committed a crime or whatever. Just hear them.
What about people who lost someone to suicide? You've talked to in your film, you talked to a lot of family members. You experience that in your family.
Yeah.
Lots of people feel guilty they ask why. Why would they do this? What did I do wrong?
Yes.
How do you talk to those people? What do you say?
The first thing that I say is that I see you. Being a suicide loss survivor is it's like the club that nobody wants to join, and nobody asks to join that, and it's a crushing, unrelenting pain that is unlike any other, because it is so loaded with what could I have done, right? And that monkey never leaves your back. It's just always there. That question why, that those tormenting three letters are always there. So I think it's really important to see suicide loss survivors and make sure they know that they're seen, and that their pain is real, and their agony is seen. The other thing I tell people is, first of all, you're not responsible for what you didn't know. And that is true both in terms of warning signs and danger signs and risk factors and all of that stuff. If you're not educated, you're not responsible for not knowing that stuff. We're always going to miss people. We just are, because of the nature of suicide, and because of stigma, and because people hide things, and because people are wonderful pretenders. But we give it the best shot that we can with what we know, and there's so much we don't know about suicide. But I think my biggest fear is that someone comes to a suicide prevention training, a loss survivor, and feels an intense guilt. I should have known this stuff. I should have known. No, I don't ever want someone leaving a training, feeling like that. It's just not true.
For anybody who may want to watch your film, tell them where to go, or even check out OC 87 Recovery Diaries.
I'll tell you where to go. You can go.
That wasn't too pitchy. I really think people should watch the film, but if it was bad, I would tell you it was bad. Trust me.
I know you. I know.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I'd be like, if I thought your pitch letter was bad, I wouldn't have answered it.
My pitch letter was a little crazy.
It was so funny. Oh my God. I still have it. So you can go to abeautifulldaytomorrow.com to watch the film. You can go to YouTube and type in A Beautiful Day Tomorrow if you like typing things. You can go to my Instagram, which is at Lovebug Trumps Hate. Yes, it is political. And the link is in my bio to the film. And absolutely go to oc87recoverydiaries.org. There's just a lovely collection of personal essays and films that you can watch and share and love. These people are extraordinary.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thank you so much for sticking with us, tuning in. I look forward to your comments always, and check out Gabe's film, and also subscribe, share this with someone. If you think it might help someone, I think it's important to share it too, especially. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in.